You're listening to the First Fight Podcast, home of the people and stories behind the fight. I'm Jennifer Anderson, the host and creator. My goal is to give you a peek into the remarkable world of fighting and create a platform for fighters to tell their stories. In each episode of this series, a different fighter shares a transformative story of their first time. Welcome back, everyone. Today is a really special episode. I talk with Kevin Ross. Now, I've been following Kevin for a long time, being a big Muay Thai fan. A lot of people might consider him the face of American Muay Thai. He's most definitely one of the OGs of the sport and has done a lot to further it in the U.S. He recently had his retirement fight, and I have to say I'm sad to see him go, but we talk a little bit about his first fight and his last fight as well. You can actually hear the full story of his first fight on Joe Rogan episode 1417. And we talk a lot about his mindset, victim mentality, and the importance of overcoming it, and what it took for him to step away from the sport and what he plans on doing after. So I really enjoyed this talk. I hope you do too. So yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. You're freshly retired, so I'm sure you're wanting to lounge.
No problem at all.
So I've actually been a fan for quite a while, but listening to you on Joe Rogan made me an even bigger fan. I really appreciate you sharing your story and using your platform to be vulnerable and influence other people. Now, you shared a little bit about your history and your first fight story on there, but what I thought was really interesting about it is that you were thinking about fighting for years before you actually pulled the trigger.
Yeah, almost. I mean, probably even longer than that, but 94 was the first time I saw Muay Thai. That's the first time I was introduced to it, and that was really when it triggered that want to do it. I'd always wanted to, or thought about the idea of fighting and boxing, martial arts and stuff like that. But when I saw Muay Thai, I knew that if I was going to ever do it, that was it. But yeah, it took almost 10 years from that point to actually getting in the gym.
It blows my mind how one decision really can change the trajectory of your whole life. Do you ever think about how different everything would have been if you just decided not to do it or pull the trigger on it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead for sure. I don't have much doubt in my mind that I'd not be in a good situation if that wouldn't have happened. But yeah, not only do I look at that, I look at all the things that led up to that. Like, it wasn't just that one day. There was a process of starting to look at things differently and think about things differently, and even just in my mind making observations and decisions that ultimately led to that day when I did make that decision. It's not like it was just that one day by itself. There was a series of events and a lot of things that all played into this final decision. And I think that's one thing that we often overlook, is that these things don't just happen. Like, it's like gaining strength. They don't just all of a sudden you're strong. It's a daily thing. It's everything that you do, every decision that you make, you're either taking a step in one direction or the other. They all add to this or take away from it. And when we begin to start viewing things that way, it makes things a lot simpler, not easier, but simpler to make decisions that are either going to help us or make it worse. I use that analogy when you think about training for a fight or dieting or anything. It's like, is this thing that I'm doing going to help me or is it going to hurt me? It's one or the other. And when you put it into those terms, it kind of clears things up a little bit easier. It takes a lot of we have these internal debates about, again, with like diet, we're like, oh, it's not that bad. but is it going to help you get closer to your goals or farther away? If you make it that simple, it makes it a little bit easier to at least understand the decisions that you're making, as opposed to just kind of going about your life and then all of a sudden you're not where you want to be. But if you look at it that way, you understand why you're not where you want to be.
Yeah. Do you feel like you said, you would have been dead if you didn't make this choice? Do you feel like that's kind of liberating for you and makes it a little easier to be all in on fighting?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Part of that is what's made this ever since making that decision easier, at least in my mind. I took the decision and the debating about things out of my head. I viewed everything from that point on as almost like extra credit. Like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here anyway. So it took a lot of I would say, not necessarily my doubts and my fears away, but the decision whether or not I'm going to go forward. I think that's one thing that doesn't get conveyed enough. It's not that just because you're doing these things means those fears and doubts go away. I still have the same ones I did the day I started. They didn't go anywhere. I had the same thoughts prior to this fight that I have had at all my fights. It doesn't necessarily go away, and a lot of times it might even get worse. Like with people's fear, sometimes it can get worse, and a lot of times it will get worse. You just learn how to handle it. You learn how to process it better and understand what it is and see it for what it is, as opposed to letting it control you like it used to. But I think that we view people who we look at as brave, or people in the spotlight or anything like that, as if they don't deal with this stuff. And which is the opposite is probably true. They probably deal with more than you could ever imagine.
Well, it's like pain. You're reframing it in your head. It's not like you're not feeling it.
Yeah, and that's what I try to tell people a lot too. It's like, when I'm fighting and stuff and I'm smiling and I'm bleeding, and like, I don't enjoy pain at all. I don't enjoy it. I don't want any pain at all, ever. I just know that I understand what it is, and I always view pain and discomfort and failure almost as it's a question. Like, are you going to give up? Are you going to give in? Are you going to quit? I'm like, no, obviously not. And I think part of that brings that smile to my face. Like, it's almost like I'm being questioned in that moment. Are you going to give in to this? Are you going to give up? And that's just like, no, I'm not going to. You can kill me if you want to, but I'm going to keep coming.
Well, that's one thing I like about martial arts is it's like a practice. It
Mm-hmm.
once you get better at that, you get better at everything else. Like for me, fighting was difficult to put myself out there, like a one-on-one type competition. And I felt like the more I did that, the easier it was for me to put myself out there with other things and take on more challenges overall.
Yeah, and that's I think, an important piece of not only martial arts, but just things that are difficult, whether it's sports, I mean, it could be anything. I mean, martial arts definitely does that, but you could use those same principles to everything. There's this difficult journey that you're on that's unending, essentially, if you want to continually get better, and you have to deal with all these things and go through with all these things, all these doubts and fears and ups and downs, and it's just everything that you go through is applicable to every other aspect of life, and you learn all these extremely important and valuable lessons that you're going to need anyway, and you're kind of forced to confront them when many times in life we almost avoid these difficult things and these painful things and things that don't necessarily have an answer to them, and you have to go through them. And what you're forced to do that in martial arts, you're forced to do that in sports, you're forced to do that in going after difficult things. And I think that's one of the greatest things about martial arts and then training is you're forced to just get better as a individual, really.
Now, do you feel if you didn't experience, um, you know, the life that you did before you made that decision to fight, that you would have been on that same path? Do you think that's what it took for you to? get on this path?
I don't know. I think what really helped that is for how much of my life that I did kind of the opposite. Like I allowed the weight of the world and the things that happened to just break me down, and not recognizing that it doesn't matter what happens to us. We still have a choice. Like, good and bad things are going to happen to everybody. You still have a choice how you handle it. And it's that, like I always go back to this, it's that victim mentality that almost like life is happening to you and you don't have a choice. You still have a choice to make. Even if somebody's got a gun to your head, you have a choice. And we don't take enough responsibility in the choices that we make and how we respond to whatever the circumstances may be, because we can point to them and say, well, look, this isn't fair, and this thing happened to me, and this is difficult, and it's understandable, of course, but you still have a choice with how you're going to respond to whatever that is. And by knowing what it was like to give into that for so long, so much of my life, I gave into what was happening, and just being bogged down by the unfairness in the world, and that big realization is these things happen to everybody. Like we look at people who make it, people in a certain place, and we think they don't deal with the stuff that you deal with, and that might be true. They might not deal with what you deal with, but you don't know what they're dealing with. You only look at the benefit. You look at the end result. You don't look at the struggle. You don't look at the day in, the day out of all the all the trials and tribulations that they go through to get to where they got to and to stay to where they got to. And that's where we get a lot of the, I wish I had this in my life. If I had this, then everything would be different. Like, yeah, maybe, but probably not. But you're not seeing what that comes with. Like, I wish I had this. Yeah, you wish you had this money, maybe, but you don't wish you had the work that it took to get that, or you don't wish you had the pressure that comes with, or the spotlight that comes with. You just want this one little aspect of it, and that's where I think a lot of negativity comes from, as we look at so many of those pieces of life, or we look at things as if like we can't achieve because we don't have this one element that other individual does, but achieving these things is this whole puzzle, and you're just looking at this one tiny piece. Like you have all kinds of pieces of the puzzle that they didn't have, and we all have blessings and curses, basically, but it's such a complex thing. The only thing that differentiates the people that make it and the ones that don't is the people's refusal to give up and to not stop trying and not to make up in the areas where they lack. It's not as if just people that have certain aspects, like, oh, you're athletic, or oh, you have money, or oh, you have whatever. That's just one piece. It's only one piece, and it's again, that's why I try to be as vocal as I can about a lot of these things, because I feel like if people understood that, like what it takes, regardless of what skills or blessings or anything else you have, you would realize that it's all just a matter of hard work, discipline, never giving up, this hard-headedness to, like, I'm going to make it no matter what happens.
Well, I agree with you 100%. The bottom line is you have what you have. So it's what you're doing with it. The victim mentality is, do you want to go through your life feeling like poor me and feel like things are happening to you? Even if you've had a shitty life, you look at it like things are happening to you, you're completely out of control.
Yeah.
I'd rather have control.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I thought was interesting about you is that you actually lost your first fight. Only one other guest that I interviewed lost their first fight, and it was John Wayne Parr.
Oh yeah, did he?
Yeah, and
I got stopped. I got crushed. I didn't just lose. It's not like I had lost like a close decision or something. I got stopped. Yeah, it was
I always
It
wanted
was,
to know, like, out of all professional fighters, I guarantee the vast majority of them won their first fight. You know, like you
yeah,
said,
and
you have to
that's,
decide that you like it when you're losing too.
it's one of those things that it's gonna happen eventually. You might as well get it over with that first early on. So because it forces you, like any loss or difficulty that we have, it forces us to confront these things. And again, like I said, with the bleeding and the pain and stuff, it's a question. You're continually being asked questions. Are you going to give in? Are you going to give up? Or do you want this bad enough to go through these difficult times? And for me, having to face that and confront that the very first time out was the most beneficial thing I could have ever had happen. And I saw the negative aspects of people that went on these winning streaks. Eventually you're going to have to confront that. It doesn't matter how long you do. I mean, if you're doing the sport and you're doing it the right way, eventually you're going to lose. Eventually you're going to get knocked out. Eventually you're going to get hurt. These things are going to happen. And if you're only doing this because you're winning or because it's easy or because you're able to stay healthy and active, you're probably wasting your time, because when that does inevitably happen, you're going to realize you spent all this time doing something that you could have been doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I feel having to face that early on is the best thing that can happen to you, because you're like, do you really want to do this or not? That's the question. And if you do, you're going to do it anyway. Are you going to do this only if you're winning, only if you're looking good, only if you're in the spotlight and getting attention? Or are you only going to do this because it's making you the best version of yourself? It's challenging you. It's forcing you to confront these things. And that's what I realized in the beginning, was that's really why I'm doing this. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to win. It's nice to be a champion. It's nice to be viewed as one of the best there is. But is that really why I'm doing this? No, it's just like a surface level egocentric thing. Like that's great and all, but that's all that really feeds is your ego. Like, am I doing this to be better in all areas, not just how I'm viewed on the outside by other people?
Well, it's easy to do it and to love it when you're winning, right?
Yeah, anybody can do something when it's easy, when it's fun, when you're winning, when you're getting a lot of accolades for it. Does that show you who's really doing this for what reasons and why?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, yeah, that's the old expression, like everybody would do it if it was easy. And when it's easy, everybody does it. And then as soon as things start to get difficult, you see those numbers start to dwindle, and you see people's motivation start to go. And as I said, I think it's better to learn those things early on. And again, it doesn't mean you not to do this because you have different reasons for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand what that is. For me, it was always all in or nothing, like life and death. It's like, I'm gonna push this as hard as I can because that's what I'm willing to risk and give up in order to go after this thing. But if you're not, it's better that you know that, and then you can kind of face things look at things through that lens and understand it through that point of view, as opposed to kind of pretending, like you pretend that's what you really want because you haven't had to actually answer those questions yet, and it's easy to fake it. But eventually you will have to. And the worst time to figure that out is like in the middle of a fight when somebody's could really hurt you bad. It's better to know that in the practice. That's why it's like good to learn these things in practice.
Yeah,
you
can't fake it.
Yeah.
Definitely can't fake fighting. So once you had that first loss and you thought about it for a couple days, is that when you decided, like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was really maybe 2 days that were like, where especially right after the fight, so it was 9 months in, and I mean, I picked this up so quick. I was so naturally, I mean, I've always been athletic, but I really picked up the sport rapidly. People thought I'd been doing it for a really long time. So in my mind, I was on this trajectory to just, I was just going to go crush everything. I was going to go in there and win my first fight and then just be dropping people left and right. And then that was just an extreme wake up call. I was like, oh, well, okay, maybe it's not what I thought it was going to be. Maybe it's not that easy. And then even all those doubts and fears I had before I ever even started came rushing back in. Like, yeah, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're not strong enough. Maybe you're too old to do this. This may just not be for you. And then that was that question that I was confronted with. Well, maybe you're not going to be great at this. Are you going to do it anyway? Maybe you're not going to win a lot of fights. Are you going to do it anyway? Maybe you're not going to make it anywhere. Are you going to do it anyway? And the answer was, yeah, I'd love to do this. I love to do this. It doesn't matter if I'm the best in the world or the worst in the world. I love to do this. Mm-hmm. And the only way for me to ever find out what that answer is to keep going and to keep pushing myself and to keep striving day in and day out to be better and to grow. And that was that. As soon as I made that decision, as soon as I understood what that decision was, it's like, all right, this is we're looking at the top, which is an unachievable place. It's just like we are gonna continually be doing as much as humanly possible to be better, whatever that means, to keep challenging ourselves. And yeah, so as soon as that clicked in my head, it was I kind of understood more once I was back in the gym, and that's what I try to convey to a lot of people. I'm like, you just got to get that first one out of the way, because until you have that first fight, you could be doing this for 20 years. You don't really know. You don't even know what it is that you're necessarily doing. You're practicing and you're training and you're going through the motions, but until you have that reference of a fight, what that is, you're kind of just pretending out there in the world and faking it until you really understand what it's like in there. Like, oh shit, okay. But then once you have that knowledge, you're able to apply that more specifically when you're training. It makes more sense. The context is there, and you just got to get that first one out of the way and see where you're at.
At one point, you eventually, I feel like, became kind of the face of Muay Thai in America. One of the faces.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
How did you feel about that? Did you feel a lot of pressure?
I didn't even know, like, when that started happening. I mean, this was probably like 10 years ago. I mean, I understood people were like saying that. I didn't really, like, it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, all right, I don't really get it. And I think I've never viewed myself that way. So it was just this kind of foreign thing. Like, I didn't connect to that. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, people say this. Like, I didn't feel at the time, I didn't feel any additional pressure. I think because I was just so focused on what I was doing, I never really ever concerned myself with what other people said or thought about me or what I did, because I feel like what I was aiming towards was so far beyond what anybody could say or view me as. Like, oh yeah, you're doing a great job. I'm like, yeah, great. Well, you see where I'm trying to go? Like, this is nothing. Like, so it didn't even necessarily register in my brain how people looked at me. I never kind of connected with that. And then I would say it was probably closer to like 5 years ago. It kind of got to the point when I couldn't disassociate myself with that anymore. Like, I think I just was able to disconnect from that for so long, but eventually it got to the point where I couldn't not think about that. Like, I know that people are viewing me this way. I know that I am this person in the sport. It kind of became that I had to kind of accept that, but it almost was a negative for me because I started thinking about that, where before it was just like, I'm just trying to be the best that I can be and whatever that is, and I'm aiming for these unattainable goals. Now suddenly it's, yeah, but you also have these people looking at you a certain way, and you need to be this way for them. And I almost tried to, or not tried, just was thinking about it more in terms of like, I need to be this person and behave this way, as opposed to just being who I was naturally anyway. Like I was trying to be myself, which kind of just got everything really weird mentally and emotionally. And then I started recognizing like that's kind of what was going on. I was like, you're trying to be this person that you are. Why are you're trying to be yourself, which is weird. And just letting go of that, although still just understanding that, I think once you kind of get to that point, you can't pretend it's not that way anymore. For a long time, I did, or just didn't think about it. Like, I don't necessarily want to be this person in the sport. Like, I don't view myself as any different than anybody else. I'm just trying to be better over here. I'm not, I don't feel special or I don't feel like this person. I feel like the same person that started day one. Like, I just want to be better. I want to be good. I want to do this thing that I love. Like, why am I any different than you or anybody else? Because I've done some more stuff. So it's always been a very surreal and odd thing for me. But kind of this whole journey has been that way. Very kind of dreamlike, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel very disconnected from reality in a way. I think a lot of that does come from that mindset of, I thought I was going to be dead by year 2000 and almost did die. And like, ever since that point, something like clicked in my brain that was just like, this is kind of all extra, this is all extra credit. And it's really like, how do you really, if this was extra credit, how would you want to live? I saw this movie, can't remember the name of it, but it was all about, the summary of it all was, if you could go back and live your life again, not to live it as if it's your last day, but live it as if you get to do this again. And if you could do this again, if you live this moment again, how would you really want to do it? And that kind of just clicked in my brain a long time ago. And I don't know, it's been weird ever since. Weird in like a surreal way. Everything's very surreal to me. So it's strange. Like, if just imagine if you suddenly were in this place where like you're in the spotlight and people are viewing this way, how weird would that be to you? That's how weird it is to me.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a good person for the job because you are so relatable in that sense. I feel like you do give back to the sport a lot and are approachable, and you've definitely left the sport better than you found it.
I'm grateful. Really, that's always been my goal, is to give back as much as I can. And kind of, I learned a lot of these lessons from watching other people coming up and just seeing how you can behave, and like how some people let so much of this get to them, and all of a sudden they're this different person, and putting on this show. Like, I could never do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I say that you really can tell what kind of person someone is when they find success, more
That's
so than when
That's
they're down
true.
and out.
Yeah, definitely.
So, recently announced your retirement. I'm sure you've had a lot of ups and downs throughout your career. What made you come to this conclusion now?
It's been kind of in the back of my mind now for a lot of years. In a lot of ways, people have been asking me how long I've been going to do this since the beginning.
Yeah, I understand.
That's like, always, people have always like, how long are you going to keep doing this? And I'm like, I always kept kind of three things in mind. It was, do you still love to do this? Yeah, that's probably always going to be the case. 2, can you still physically do this? Like, are you able to do the training, or are you still improving, or are you declining? And then I'm like, yeah, in a lot of ways, I feel better than ever, and improving a lot of these aspects of my game. And then 3 is like, are you willing to go through what it takes? Like, are you willing to put yourself through the sacrifice and the struggle daily of what it is, and taking all those things into account. A big part of it for me was, like, I feel, geez, it's been like almost 10 years now. I felt like the last Mohicans out here for like a decade. It was, I feel I'm on probably my 3rd generation of fighters since I started, which is just crazy. Like, all the people I started with are long gone as far as fighting goes. Some of them still train and that kind of thing, but I've just felt alone out here for so long. Even though I have a team, of course, and great people to work with. It's just different, when you're coming up with people and then they're all doing the same thing, and you all kind of started together and you're all focused on this unattainable goal. You feel like you're on this path, and then all of a sudden other people are starting up back behind you, and then you're out here by yourself and trying to keep that going. So a lot of it has become, I don't know, part of it has become a little more like work, whereas it used to be just what I do. I go to the gym every day, train hard with people I love, and I'm still doing that now. It's just different. And even more so now with the way the world is. I mean, this past year and a half was just fucking like so impossible. It's like every single session needs to be scheduled and is different. And
you're out in California still, right?
Yeah. So like,
I'm in Jersey, so it's similar.
Yeah, I mean, like 2 years ago, it's like, here's the gym, here's what the schedule, here's when most people are doing this, that, and the other. It's like, you know what it is, you go, and then, or you don't go. And that's kind of the thing, where now it's like every single thing needs to be set up individually, and you don't necessarily know who's available and who's around, and sparring partners and coaches. And yeah, it's just become like so difficult. And so for me, before I even took this fight, I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to push myself through all this is to know that this is it for me. This is, I'm not going to be able to, one, put myself through it, as well as like sacrifice what I have to sacrifice in order to do it. Like, it was hard enough before. Now it's like crazy. And also, like, what are your goals? I mean, right now it's just, I love to fight. I'm always going to love to fight.
Yeah.
But really, what are you really doing? You're just fighting because you love to fight. You're not trying to necessarily achieve a certain thing. Like, I don't, like, me. Yeah, maybe there's individual fights that I could say would be achievements, but as a whole, it's really just, I'm just doing this because I love to do it. But I'll always love to do it. And I think that it's one of those really difficult things, because I feel like you're either going to retire too early or too late.
It's so hard. There's like, no.
I never wanted to retire too late. And I feel, for me, again, I've always felt like this is extra credit. Like, I never thought I'd have one fight, let alone however many. I've had 70 something. So I think I've had a good perspective since the beginning, always knowing that this could be over every single day. It could be over. And I've gone through enough injuries and difficulties to have dealt with that already so many times. It's really a point of acceptance. It's kind of like, nobody likes to think about the fact that we're all going to die, but like, if you've almost died enough times, you're like, all right, well, you kind of like dealt with it before. So then it's like, all right, well, yeah, it's going to happen. So it's better to kind of deal with that, understand it, so that way once you have to face it, inevitably you will have to face it, you can go about it a little bit better. So I feel like I've just processed that throughout my career, You know, again, it's not to say that it makes it easy. It's not easy. It's fucking hard. You know,
Yeah.
it sucks because I do love to do this, but just knowing that day is gonna come, you know, and you need to be ready for it, or else it's gonna affect you extremely negatively. I mean, part of it for me too, it would be a lot more difficult if I was kind of saying goodbye to the sport, you know, and going to something else. That would be, I don't even know if I can handle that, but still training and still working with people, and you know,
It's a lifestyle. I think that's,
yeah. So
especially
for
with the way
me,
you look at fighting, I feel like it's more about your mindset and lifestyle than
yeah,
anything.
you know, when Gina retired, she went straight into movie making and completely a different lifestyle
Yeah.
where you know, but she also, like, this for me has always just been a part of who I am, you know, and I could never say goodbye to this sport. I'd always need to do it to some extent, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So in that way, it's been a little bit easier for me than I think other people. And again, with I think a lot of people don't even think about this stuff until it's actually time to say goodbye, and that's harder to deal with. So I just I don't know, or I'm just a weirdo, I guess.
Not a weirdo. I think retirement is the hardest part about it. Like you said, you don't want to do it too late. You don't want to do it too soon. I actually know Frankie Edgar pretty well, and he said he's
Uh-huh.
doing it, and as long as he can still compete, you know, because he loves
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But it's hard. It's like, do you want people to always wonder if you could have done more, or you to always wonder, or do you want people to look at you and think,
Well, that's the thing. It's like they're either going to wonder, and you're going to wonder if you could always do more, or it could be just sad and like, yeah, you probably should have stopped like 4 fights
yeah,
ago. And
the former is better? Probably.
yeah, I would say the most difficult thing for especially fighters um, is like everything about what we do is going against the odds, you know, going against that voice in your head that tells you to give up. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to listen.
Yes,
You
yes,
know what I mean? Like, it's crazy because, and that's what you see a lot of times too, particularly with fighters that have that, you know, life and death kind of way of fighting, like I did, and a lot of other people. It's like they don't know when to give up, you
that's
know,
like
and then
exactly a friend of mine who fights professionally was saying the same thing. Like they're ready and
mhm.
they feel empowered by being able to walk away on their terms, but in the same breath, they're like, I feel like I'm giving up. And this is a fighter mentality. You're always trying to like get yourself up to go, you know, beyond some sort of
Yeah,
obstacle, you know?
yeah, it's tough. I think that I think just having a broader kind of perspective on it though is like, well, you're not giving up, you know. It's more complex than that, you know. And it's like, how how do I want to face this inevitable thing? Do I want to just keep dragging it out as long as possible because I won't give up, you know? Or it's like, do I want to face this the way that I've faced everything? And it's not like giving up is such a
Yeah.
surface level thing. You know, it's very easy to say, "Oh, you're giving up." Like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm done. I feel, I feel complete. Like I've completed it. Like, yes, of course, I can keep doing this, and I can keep fighting, and I can, you know, I can win, and I can lose, and I can and do everything else. But I don't feel that there will ever be a point when it'll feel this kind of pure. You know, like I feel like this was a pure ending for me. And like I said, before even taking this fight, I was like, this is the only way we're doing this, is if it's it. I wouldn't have gone through what I went through if it wasn't. I would just be like, no, we're not doing this at all. So it was more like, yeah, this is it. And you know, you're gonna have, I always wanted to have one more Muay Thai fight anyway, and to be able to have my last fight be a Muay Thai fight, and to be, you know, on a card in a promotion that I believe in and that I feel part of. um, it was really great. And just to have everybody there, everyone that was able to come out, like I don't see it ever being any better than that, regardless of the outcome of a fight. I just don't see how that would even be possible.
Did you feel that during the fight? Like, was it difficult for you?
Yeah, yeah, it was almost impossible because it's like one, when it comes to fighting, you need to be so dialed in and
Yeah.
just checked out of every other aspect of life. But at the same time, when you know it's your last one, you're also like you want to be present and
Yeah.
there for it as well, and trying to balance all of those things. Yeah, it was really hard. I mean, I could look back and say, well, if you would have viewed this fight as any other fight, it would have been very different. I probably would have fought different and had a different mentality, and it's such a tricky thing. But I feel like I was able to balance all those things relatively well without being too stuck on one side or the other. And um, it's always so easy to look back and say, well, if I would have had this, that, or the other, then it would have
Yeah.
been different. Like, yeah, okay, but so many other things would have been different too. I really, yeah, I don't really have anything I would necessarily change. If I had to go back and do it again, I don't, I don't think because if you go back and do it again, you change one thing, you change everything. And I think that again, that's something we tend not to think about. Like, oh, if you go back and change this aspect of your life, like, yeah, but that changes everything,
Yeah.
and you might not necessarily be in a better place just because of that one piece being different. So yeah, I'm very, very extremely grateful and feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to have done that. The fact that that fight even happened, there were so many things that were working against it. Um, you know, at the minimum, just the way the world is and everything going on, like that could have been taken away at any second. And so many fights have been taken away, and so many fighters have been like so close to being back in there, and then it gets stripped away. So uh, yeah, could I go back and complain about certain certain things? Yeah, sure. But the fact that I was even able to do that again was just like a dream, like it very easily could have not happened for countless reasons. So I feel very fortunate, and being able to come through it uninjured and still have my brain and
Hmm.
most of my body, and I don't. It's hard. It'd be hard for me to look at that with any negativity or complain about anything. I really, it was really great.
Now, did anyone know, outside your immediate circle that you were planning on retiring?
No, no. I mean, just a few. I mean, even some people close to me didn't really know. I think a lot of people thought maybe that, but there was a few people that knew. Even I think even them, they didn't probably believe me. Like, yeah, you're just saying that, and then once you get in there again, you're like, oh my god, this is great. And yeah, there's an aspect of that where I'm like, yeah, this is great. I don't want to not do this anymore, but it's easy to discount all the stuff leading up to that. It's like as soon as the fight happens, you forget about all that. You're like, oh yeah, it was great. Like, oh, it was almost impossible. Yeah, so a few people knew, but again, I don't know how many of them even believe me to begin with.
Hmm.
Um, they probably still don't.
Yeah,
It was
people.
like, yeah, you're gonna come back. Like, no, no. I mean, it's not to say I would never fight again. I would never. This was the last time I was gonna like push myself. Like, yeah, I'd still fight for fun. And
Yeah.
me and John Wayne Parr talked about starting a like a masters division, like 40 and over. Like we'll fight, but we're not really gonna like train that hard. More like almost like celebrity boxing type thing. I was like, that would actually be great. You can give people coming up something to look forward to once they're done.
Yeah.
Start the league, and it'd be at the very least it'd be entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
Kind
No,
of make a show about it. So I think I don't know, maybe we'll actually do that.
it would be amazing. I love him. So you said you are going to stay involved. Are you planning on being more involved in coaching or?
Yeah, as far as like what that looks like and means, I don't really know at this point. I mean, that'll be something that develops over time. Over the last few years, I've been teaching a lot more as far as helping fighters out get ready for their fights and stuff. And that's really what I love to do. I mean, I love teaching everybody, but as far as teaching fighters that are so focused and determined, and to watch them and to be able to assist them and help them improve and get better, that's really the most beneficial thing for me. I love to pass this sport on to everybody, of course, but when it's someone that's really trying to get better and to like, I feel like a lot of times when you're teaching just the general public, I'm like, well, anybody could really do this. You don't really have to be that good in order to teach general people, but to have all this knowledge that and experience that I do, and to be able to pass that along to people that are coming up. I mean, I feel like that's really where the benefit lies. Like I need to pass this knowledge on to somebody, and when you're doing just the general classes, I don't feel like you're really doing that. Even though it's still great and fun and I enjoy it, but as far as helping fighters out, that's what I really love to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's really cool about martial arts is it's kind of following the lineage of certain styles through fighters. I love looking at a fighter and saying like, oh, he has so-and-so style. That coach taught him this, that coach taught him that. It's cool for you to be able to have that passion and pass it down to other fighters, and look forward to seeing more of it.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and I wish you the best of luck in whatever you decide to do with your time.
Thank you.
Just keep fighting the good fight.
Do my best.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Once again, a big thanks to Kevin Ross for taking the time to share a little bit of his story. He's a really inspiring person, and like I said in the intro, you should definitely check out his episode on Joe Rogan. He uses his platform for good, and not a lot of people do that. I wish him the best of luck in his future. I'm sure he'll still be involved in Muay Thai in some capacity or another. But thanks again, everyone, for listening as well. You can follow us on Instagram at The First Fight, and check out all our old podcasts on Spotify, any other podcast listening platform. This was a real treat to add another story like Kevin's to the archives of First Fight. Hope you guys all have a good day.